Hello, everybody. This is Monica Larner back for our Thursday afternoon or morning appointment with an Italian winemaker as part of my Italian wine series that I've been doing every week with great pleasure. Hello to everybody who's already joining. So today we're speaking with the general manager of Castello Banfi, Enrico Viglierchio, who will be with us from the vineyards of the Castello Banfi and also from the winery. Let me see if I can find him right now so we can get him on. Hold on. And we will have a chance to speak about the new vintage of Brunello coming up, the 2016, very awaited, very highly anticipated, as well as the 2015s that are on the market now. And to learn a little bit more about the philosophy of Castello Banfi. Castello Banfi is one of the, here he is, Enrico, good morning or good afternoon.
Ciao, Monica. Good morning to you.
Enrico. I'm good, how are you? You look great. You look wonderful with the
You
end
too.
of the summer. I'm
In
at
the
home,
middle
but
of
you're
the
outside.
harvesting. Do you want to join us?
I will be. I was actually supposed to harvest this morning, but thankfully it was canceled. We'll probably do it on Monday. But my brother's already picking white grapes here. We've only picked a little bit of red for some rosé. So what are you guys harvesting now? What are you harvesting right now?
Now, Monica, this is a very lucky day. Fortunately, you did today, not yesterday. Yesterday we had quite a lot of rain, but no problem. This is part of our game during the harvesting. We are in the middle of the harvesting of Sangiovese for Brunello. Now we are I'm located in a vineyard of Poggio alle Mura. You can see probably the castle on the
We
back.
can see the castle behind you, beautifully backlit by the Tuscan sun. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And the harvesting this year started about August 20 with white varieties. We had a season, an interesting season, I think, very beautiful, quite dry. But we had also some rain in June, and the quality of the grape, we say in the harvesting time is like to, I don't know, give good luck to one that is going for a truffle hunter. So far the quality of the grape is from very good to excellent. We had a little bit less quantity than last year. But we had a very good season in terms of rain, in terms of weather. We had a little bit of spring frosting, but the first Sangiovese that we are bringing to the winery that we will taste later are, from my standpoint, then we will see your standpoint, are very good to an excellent vintage.
Oh, I can't wait. Listen, Enrico, step aside. Let us see the castle a little bit better because there's a beautiful, oh my God, how gorgeous. You can see the sunlight. Oh my God, look at that view. Look at that view. Look at those colors, and the vines have that beautiful kind of golden green tinge. Oh, that's gorgeous. It's like a painting. It's gorgeous.
Yes, it's like a painting.
There you are. Listen, Enrico, so before we start, tell us a little bit about what you've been up to this past year. How has it been? And you know, how has it been at Castello Banfi? How have you been?
2020 has been is becoming quite challenging here with all this situation that, of course, this situation affected everywhere. And let's say, in addition, I think that one of the most critical things that we had to face, more in addition to, of course, economical and finance factors, less sales, was also the social, the big social impact that this situation had on everyone. The fact that basically now it's a kind of a world blocked or reducing a lot what is our our social life, no? And we are all now immediately in a couple of months, all of us became expert of Zoom, WebEx, Google Teams, Instagram, whenever. And of course, this has had a very good help in this moment because on a certain way was able to, on a certain way, alleviate the effect of the isolation.
And we have wine, which is
And
very
we have
important.
wine. Fortunately, we have wine.
We had a lot of good wine. Listen, so to our viewers, I already see a lot of people signing on and joining us. As always, if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and write them in the comments, and write them in the the little prompt there, and we will try to get to everybody's questions. Enrico is here to answer everything, and anything I can answer, I'm happy to do as well. And I also wanted to, because I see a lot of people coming from different parts of the world. So if anybody is joining us from, well, tell us what country you're joining us from. Just send us either the name of your country and send a wave so we can wave back. And we're so happy to have you here today. And I'm always excited about the international reach that this Instagram Live always has. So thank you to everyone. Castello Banfi is one of the most important realities, not only in the appellation of Brunello di Montalcino, but in Tuscany. It is a winery that makes not only a lot of wine, but it makes very good wine that has been a leader in the market and has in many ways forged new markets for Brunello. It was one of the pioneers in bringing Brunello to the world stage. And for that, Castello Banfi is incredibly important to the denomination and for Italian wine as an ambassador of excellence. It is a beautiful estate to visit, not only for the beauty that you see behind you of the vineyards, but there is a castle that is absolutely out of this world with different dining options. And I think there's even a little hotel there for people who stay. So if anybody visits Montalcino, I highly recommend it. And Castello Banfi also has one of the best tasting rooms in Italy where you can come and you can taste and you can buy and you can learn more about the wines. And I mention that only because that is quite a rarity, especially in a country where most tastings are done by appointment and it's very hard, to meet with the family members if they're not there. But Castello Banfi is well set up for visitors and is very welcoming. But on that note, Enrico, I wanted to ask you to give us a little bit of a brief history of Castello Banfi. I mean, a brief one because it has a very long history, but kind of to bring us up to speed on on the roots of the estate.
Yeah, Castello Banfi. Castello Banfi has been founded in 1978 from John and Dari Mariani, from the Mariani family, that are Italo-Americans, leading importers for the United States of wine at that time, that they really fall in love with Italy and came to Montalcino in 1978, and they create on a certain way Castello Banfi, putting together this estate that was combined with 4 acquisitions from local owners, and create since the beginning Castello Banfi, and dedicating also not only dedicating also this project not only to the vineyard, to the estate and everything, but dedicated also many years. We are here in the Poggio Le Mura vineyards. That is one of, let's say, the longest dedication to study of Sangiovese, where we did our clonal research, where we focus on Sangiovese as a variety and Brunello as a wine that compared to what was in 1978, in the 80s, could have had a very worldwide potential. We did a lot of research, from clonal research, zonation, classification of the soil, and at the same time, and you were mentioning, one of the points was to have this territory known around the world through the wine. I think Brunello is not only a wine. Brunello is a driver of culture around the world. In the bottle of Brunello, there is not only a wine, but a culture, history, Italian style, Italian country, and at the same time create this hospitality concept in order to bring the wine, to bring the world to Montalcino, because it's important to deliver, to distribute the wine around the world, but behind the wine there is a territory, there is the soil, there is the atmosphere of this place, and this was a big achievement in order to really have people coming from all over the world to know Montalcino, to taste Brunello, and to taste Brunello with our food, our air, our atmosphere. That's in briefly. Now the company is run by Cristina Mariani, that is daughter of John, and this is our philosophy. This philosophy will continue for the future.
Well, speaking of bringing Castello Banfi to the world, I would like to say hello to Lebanon, Kuwait, and Germany, just 3 countries of people that are watching. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We have a question, a very good question. Where are you located exactly? Now, Castello Banfi is in the Brunello di Montalcino appellation, which is north of Rome and south of Florence. So it's in the southern part of Florence. In the I guess southern corner of Tuscany.
It's the Brunello di Montalcino area. Montalcino area is the southwest corner of Siena province. So we are yes, about 1 hour 45 minutes from Siena and 1 hour and a half south of Florence. And Montalcino is like a square area of 24,000 hectares. That in acres is 80,000 more or less acres. And Castello Banfi is located in the southwest angle of the Montalcino territory, covering about a total surface of 2,800 hectares of properties.
And of course, the main grape that you farm, the grape that you're standing, the vines that you're standing next to are Sangiovese. And Castello Banfi has different levels of Brunello. There is a classic Brunello, if you will, or a nata, which is made with fruit from different parts of the estate. And then you have some special single vineyard expressions that go from the Brunello Poggio alle Mure. You have a Riserva Poggio alle Mure, and then a Riserva Poggio all'Oro. So maybe you can explain how, first of all, since we're in the vineyard, show us a little bit of the Sangiovese and show us a little bit about the system that you're using to grow it. And let's see the grapes. Let's see this.
This is a very nice grape of Sangiovese.
Beautiful.
This year, as an example, as you may see, we have, this is a vineyard that is cultivated, you can show, is cultivated with the spur cordon. Basically, the grape is located in this part of the vineyards. And this year we have, Sangiovese is a very challenging variety, but this year we have a grape that, as you see, the berry is quite small for Sangiovese. It's nice. The cluster is not so tight. Generally, Sangiovese in certain vintage try to create a very tight cluster. Then, with the progression of the maturation, may have a risk of some problem of botrytis or rotted smart. This year, no. And this year, what is important, we have a very strong skin. Of course, Sangiovese is not Cabernet Sauvignon in terms of characteristic of the skin, but this year we have still a very strong, very skin, and the berry is still very flexible, means that we can have more days in order to reach the, let's say, aim to reach the perfect maturation. Of course, into this period, any day is important. In every single day, something can change, because now we are in a vineyard where the grape is very well balanced. This year we have quite a good concentration in terms of very good concentration in terms of alcohol, but very well balanced with acidity. We have still acidity in terms of 6.5. That is very important, with the pH around 3.6. It's quite a perfect combination in order to have a wine with a good structure, good longevity, freshness, and very nice expression. But of course, every day, any day is a challenge, because we are in a phase where a strong rain in one day can, in a certain way, compromise also the work of 1 year. So it's very important to follow each single vineyard to understand the right moment of picking and, of course, to organize. Like you were saying, we have different level. And in our estate now, we have every single parcel of Brunello is harvested separately and vinified separately. All over the years, we have really create a classification of our territory, analyze our soil. Montalcino is a constellation of very different soil profile. I say that Montalcino is a constellation of micro terroirs, even within each same estates. So the knowledge, more we go deeper and deeper into the knowledge of these micro characteristics, more we are able to transfer this to our wine in terms of not only a question of quality. Quality, in my opinion, means also to give the wine personality, characters, uniqueness. Then you can like more or less a certain characteristic, but it's important to more and more communicate that Montalcino has a multiple personality aspects. This is what we are doing with our different areas and different wines.
So give us, I mean, one of the things that, just to build on what you just said, I mean, when I come visit your estate, you offer one of the most in-depth tastings, not just of new releases, of course, but of the micro-vinifications of the single parcels that you vinified, to really get an idea, of the grape and how it performs across your, the large territory that Banfi farms, because it has so many microclimates and micro territories packed within the larger one. So how did this, I mean, the study and the care that you take behind all this is really quite, it's exceptional, really. And it gives me as a journalist such a better understanding of, the building blocks and then create the whole wine. So I just wanted to get an idea of the philosophy that brought you to follow this path, and why is it so important to map out your vineyards to this excruciating detail?
We started in the beginning, Banfi started with a constellation of vineyards since we started planting in 79, and since the beginning we did also first single vineyard is the Poggialoro Riserva, that was done with a massal selection of what was the material available in the territory in Montalcino. Immediately after, we work on a zonation project with Attilio Scienza and with the University of Milan, together with the clonal selection process of Sangiovese. This was a second step that arrived to the Poggio alle Mura concept, where we identify an area that is where I'm here, where we planted some vineyards with our clone selected over a project of 15 years. And we create the Poggio alle Mura Brunello that is not a single vineyard, but is becoming from a specific area that was identified by our zonation study. Then we go further and say, because the more we analyze, more we see the vineyard growing, because consider that we are a very young winery. So more we see the cycle of the vineyard, we have now identified, also classified different areas that are really a concept of cru, to use a French terminology. Vineyards that are specific characteristics that are maintained through the vintages. Independently from the variation of the vintages, there are a fil rouge in certain characteristics. Last time you were here, we tasted some single vineyard that we started followed since 10 years now. And the idea now, and one will be, you will receive in the next samples that you ask for the Brunello, is a single vineyard that we released with 16 vintages, the Vigna Maruchetto, that you tasted in barrel many years ago. That
Yes.
is, on a certain way, let's say, a little bit the brother of Poggialoro. Poggialoro is our historical single vineyard with historical vines and material. The Vigna Maruchetto is starting, it's an evolution, if you want, from a technical concept created by a zonation that we did over the last 30 years and the selection of the material to the clonal start. So we decided we release the first vintage with a 16 vintage because honestly, in my opinion, is the one of the vintage I like very much.
Well, that's very exciting because I mean that brings us to the the concrete results of this study. When was the first? Because I don't know, I don't remember the first vintage of Poggialoro, but if you consider how many years that wine has been in production, now finally we
85.
have. Excuse me.
85. For the
85 is the
first
first
vintage of
vintage.
Poggialoro, 85.
85. And so from 1985, now we have a major new entry to your portfolio. I mean, that's quite exciting. I mean, that is
And we
reason.
are also now in a part of the vineyard of Poggialoro has been is in a replanting phase. And for what concerns Poggialoro, we decided to continue to use the old material that was the material selected in 79 for planting that vineyards, in order to have also the story continue, the story may evolve, to have also to see also the evolution of these vineyards in a new completely also environment, because climate is changing and technical condition, technical knowledge of growing the vines or vinify the grapes are changing compared to 30 years ago. So, but the terroir is still the same. So how it is a different interpretation of the terroir all over this year, combining this with our knowledge, our deeper knowledge, but never you arrive to know everything. Every single vintage, every single harvesting, you learn something more. It's a never-ending learning curve.
Enrico, I'm going to ask you more about the climate change theme in a second. But before I get there, I wanted to address, we had a couple of questions. One actually was addressed to you because it said, sir, so that's you. It was a very random, very general question. What is the best red wine region in the world? And I'm just going to answer and say an Italian region, Tuscany.
Oh,
Right?
my dear.
Then
Consider that this is a difficult question to me because I'm originally from Piedmont and working in Tuscany. So it's very difficult for me to answer.
Poi abbiamo avuto anche la richiesta sul perché non parliamo in italiano. Lo faremo piano piano.
We'll go back. Possiamo anche parlare in italiano.
Anche.
Lo faremo sicuramente in cantina con Gabriele. Guarda.
But for now, we'll continue in English. But we will, we do, there are some Instagram lives that I do in Italian. It just depends on the winemaker. In this case, Enrico's English is so wonderful. So why not take advantage of that? And we also have a question, which I've actually seen this question before. So I'm curious to pose it to you. And it kind of falls, and what is the difference between Sangiovese from Montalcino and Sangiovese from Chianti Classico? And the person is specifically asking about Tignanello, which of course is not 100% Sangiovese. It's Sangiovese blended with a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon. And what is the, I guess, the difference in the two territories and in the two Sangioveses from those two different parts of the world, parts of Tuscany?
Allora, Sangiovese is considered a variety, but Sangiovese is called in a technical term family varieties. In the world, all over in the world, we have classified 125 or 26 different clones of Sangiovese. And also in Tuscany, of course, majority of them are cultivated in Tuscany, which is the main region for Sangiovese. And according to the different areas, now you may select different clones that what can be a personal selection, can be a clone that is working better in certain territories. Then we have also to consider that the vineyard is a system where you have the clone, the rootstock, and the soil. So the combination of these three elements, genetically speaking, there is no difference, are different, let's say, clones of the same variety, that the territory of Chianti is different from the territory of Montalcino. First of all, the territory of Chianti is much wider than the territory of Montalcino, with much more differentiation. If you consider, I don't know, Castellina, the lowest part of Castellina up to Greve or Panzano are completely also different climate. Also in Montalcino, you have different clones of Sangiovese according to the areas, because even in Montalcino, in theory, there is not a difference between, in terms of a different variety of Sangiovese that is cultivated in Chianti or cultivated in Montalcino. The main difference is that Montalcino, Brunello di Montalcino and Rosso di Montalcino are wines that for the appellation rules has to be done 100% only with Sangiovese. 100%. And this is the only appellation, the only territory that is doing both the first, let's say the first and the second appellation strictly 100% with wine varieties. In this case, of course, probably these wines are more representative of the variation of the territories, because you cannot, let's say, adapt certain kind in certain other appellation where you are allowed to use 15, 20, or whenever it is the percentage of other varieties on a certain way. You probably compensate certain characteristic of this grape, the main grape, in certain vintages. In Brunello, no. The difference between vintages probably is more evident in Brunello territory than probably in certain other appellations.
Listen, Enrico, so now let's we have a surprise for everybody. We're going to go see some fruit being sorted and coming in off the harvest. Enrico's going to walk towards the winery, which is just about a 5-minute walk.
We reach the car 5 minutes by car, and we are into the winery. I have my lady that is helping me because
coordinating your movements. Enrico, and so while you're walking down, I wanted to ask you, so you talked a little bit about, you mentioned climate change. You also mentioned to me that yesterday was a crazy day with very weird rainstorms. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're seeing in terms of this theme of how the climate is changing?
But the climate is, yes, the climate is changing. Changing. We can go to the car and then we can continue to talk. But the climate is absolutely changing due to. Wait a second.
So this is the first time we've actually had an on the road episode.
No,
let's hope the line stays there. Seatbelt, important. Seatbelt, la cintura.
We have absolutely quite a strange, some variation into the climate. Example, one of the most evident effect is a different completely distribution of the rainfall. And the fact that you have in a certain way some kind of subtropical effect, like yesterday. In our estate, we had areas with 10 millimeters of rain and areas with 70 millimeters of rain that act like, I don't know, tropical shower, no? In a certain way, concentrated in a very limited time frame. The average temperature, of course, is a fact that is increasing, or more or less we have not only the average increase, but in a certain way we have a peak of temperature in the two levels, so very cold or very hot, that are the delta of temperature that we have in this period is much higher than what was in the past. Another important factor that we are experiencing, because sometimes we see also what is happening in outside, overground, upground, fuori terra, but underground there is another important effect, because the average temperature of the soil is a little bit increasing. And we have to consider that the brain of the vine are the roots. So the reaction of the vines to this new change, new climate, is in certain cases something that is we are studying, we are understanding, and we have variability really. When we say normal vintage, I don't think a normal vintage in the whole concept we consider will exist anymore. Any vintage will be a completely different vintage.
Now that's a lot to take in, because I mean we've been very lucky to have some great vintages, 2015, 2016, but we've also had very difficult vintages for different reasons. 2014 because of humidity and cool temperatures and rain, and 2017 that was hot, but even more importantly very dry, an extremely dry vintage. So we've really seen kind of the whole gamut. And Sangiovese, in the end, Sangiovese is a delicate grape. I mean, it reacts. It reacts. It doesn't take extreme temperatures either one way or the other very well. It really needs its perfect conditions, and that's what makes the grape so special, and so it's so expressive. Enrico, I just want to say, some people have noticed you're driving on the wrong. You have the steering wheel on the wrong. It looks like you have an English car, a guida destra. No, or is it just that we wait?
I'm driving on the left, and I have Laura. Laura is very nice. She's my art director. My art
Your art
director is.
But we're seeing all that. First of all, we're seeing that beautiful golden sunlight in the background. We're seeing the olive trees and the vineyards. Oh, there's my dog. Listen, Enrico, we had a great question from a viewer, a really fantastic question. What can you describe the imprint or the American spirit, because of the American ownership that comes through in Castello Banfi? How does that transmit? How does that come forward?
I think that they really first of all really all the family love absolutely loves this property, this estate, and Italy, because of course they love also the historical aspect of Italy, and sometimes they teach me that probably they take more care, much more sometimes than we as Italians, because probably we are used to see all these historical. You live in Rome sometimes, so we are get used to see monuments and everything. And when John and Mary came here, of course, they dedicate everything to preserve and to communicate this culture and this beautiful estate. On the other hand, they have and they brought to us absolutely a worldwide vision. A worldwide vision in order to really transfer the concept, teach to Montalcino the concept that, okay, you can produce the best wine of the world, but you have to communicate. You have to able to market this concept, to bring this concept to the market, and also to be able to communicate thinking to the person you are communicating to, because to explain a bottle of Brunello di Montalcino in Montalcino or in London, or in Indonesia, or the bottle is the same, but probably you have to also find out the right language in order to transfer the same concept in different cultures. This probably is a very important aspect that they brought to Montalcino, in addition to the fact that all the technical project that they did for Sangiovese, for Montalcino. First of all, the other very important aspect is that this is something that is not private property of the winery. These are all our research is public. Every single producer may have access to all our clonal research, zonation study, and everything, because we all believe that if the quality of the territory is increasing, is a benefit for everyone.
Yeah, yeah. Enrico, where are you driving? It feels like you've been driving for an hour.
No, guarda, adesso arrivo. Unfortunately, driving in our states is not so
We
easy.
saw like the entire appellation. You saw the entire appellation of Montalcino through your window. We saw all of
Ci
But that's all.
siamo, ci siamo. I have to respect the speed limit. I don't want to take...
You don't want to get a ticket. But that's, I mean, that also shows how, you know, the expanse of vineyards that Castello Banfi farms, and you can really get an idea of what Enrico was saying before about having so many micro territories and different conditions. Because look at, you know, I mean, it's just an incredible property. Also, Castello Banfi is located on even the southernmost side of the appellation, where because that part of the appellation is more open. That part of the appellation is more open to the sea. It's a little bit warmer, and the Brunellos on the Castello Banfi side of the appellation are always a little bit more succulent, a little bit more fruit forward. You get a lot of cherry, blackberry. You get kind of a rounder, creamier fruit texture in the wines, given that position close to the, a little bit closer to the sea. So Enrico, take us through. Show us what's happening.
Siamo arrivati in cantina. Ti presento Gabriele. Ciao Monica.
Ciao Gabriele, how are you?
E guarda, noi qui siamo sui tavoli di selezione e poi facciamo anche la selezione ottica.
So this is the sorting table. So Nico's showing us the sorting table, and they also have an optical sorter that actually can pinpoint the grapes and discards grapes that are even going down to the single berry in the cluster that they don't want in the wine. So they can get a real precise selection of the best fruit to go in their wines. You can see everybody working. Viva Italia. Oh, look at the bin coming in. Oh my God, that's fantastic. So here comes the Sangiovese grapes. They're being poured into the sorting table. And I think there were 4 people or 6 people working, selecting fruit. So they're just taking out leaves or taking out stems or taking out clusters that maybe didn't form correctly or had damage from birds or from whatever else. Taking those out, throwing them away, and letting the best fruit continue on to eventually be fermented and crushed and processed.
E tu stai vedendo la selezione del Vigna Marucchetto 2020.
Oh my God. So we're seeing the fruit that's going to go in the new wine, the Vigna Marucchetto that Enrico just told us about, and obviously the 2020 vintage. So this is the fruit coming in. Hello, Mexico. I think Enrico's transferred into Italian.
Questa è la selezione ottica, vai su.
So that's the optical sorter. It can really, I mean, it's an amazing machine. We're beginning to see more of those. I remember when you just, like, it was so rare to see them, but now it just has incredible precision in sorting out the best berries for the selection process. And you can see all of the little berries. Look at them all go. And now Enrico's walking into the fermentation area. There's
adesso
Gabriele.
vi portiamo ad assaggiare un Brunello 2020.
Okay, so we're going to do a virtual wine tasting of Brunello 2020. So the very first taste, and unfortunately I'm not there, of a new vintage, the coronavirus vintage. Castello Banfi has a state-of-the-art winery. As you can see, they have a big fermentation room with different vessels, oak, stainless steel for fermenting, and they have a huge aging room underground with with a large traditional oak cask for aging Brunello in different size oak vessels to kind of give them more variables when aging their wines. And everything is vinified according to parcel, as he explained, so that they have full control of every wine, all the grapes, where it comes from, and how the wine is eventually made. So here's Gabriela. So, oh, look at the color. Oh, wow. So look at that. So that's that kind of that typical like dark ruby, garnet, beautiful color that Sangiovese gives. It's never too purplish or black. It's always vibrant, it always stays within the ruby range. Yeah, but look at the pretty richness there. You can see it already from here, the nice concentration. Yeah, look at that. Oh, it's gorgeous. Oh, I can just taste it from here.
This is still ending the fermentation, and this is an example. It's also a fermentation that we are running with no added sulfites. It's a no sulfites fermentation that we started in 18 vintage to do in specific vineyards, some also experiments in no sulfites fermentation.
Mm-mm. So you said that you've been doing that since 2018, the experiment.
Since 2018 vintage. Yeah. It's good. Hope
It's
that
good.
sooner or later you can come to taste, Monica.
I hope so too.
Think about after all this time that you have been blocked in California, how many wineries you have to recover visiting in Italy.
Oh my God. You know, it's daunting. I have to say, everybody's been. I mean, it's been fantastic to be able to taste from this far away, and everybody's been so cooperative and getting samples. And I have to say, it's surprising how I miss Italy too. Somebody wrote, "I miss Italy. I miss Italy too. I miss my home." It's been a crazy time. Yeah. So Enrico, tell us a little bit. Okay, so so the wine that now you are presenting to us. So tell us some more about the process. How long fermentation is going to last? What do you do during fermentation? How do you move the cask, and how do you do the various processes? And then when will it be wrapped into barrel for its aging?
I'm asking the help of Gabriele.
Okay, Gabriele.
But you can speak in Italian or not? No, English.
Vabbè.
Dai, traduciamo. Per Dinoè, date finito, come è stato lavorato.
Allora
Sì.
è una vendemmia manuale del vigneto Marchigiana, e è stato gestito con il nostro sistema di selezione manuale e ottica, quindi abbiamo acini perfettamente integri, abbiamo scartato il poco verde che c'era, alcuni acini leggermente disidratati.
It's,
Yeah.
I can translate.
Yeah, bye. Go ahead, Enrico. Yes.
Yeah. It's coming from our vineyard Marchigiana. Marchigiana is another project we are working, very nice vineyard, and has been selected on the sorting table that you have seen before. And in order to have really eliminating all the green part or residual leaf, and also the berries that are not perfectly mature. And then it's been vinified in our horizon.
In horizon, chiaramente, come diceva prima Enrico, non abbiamo utilizzato solforosa in ingresso nel serbatoio, utilizzando una tecnica che viene da molti usata, è quella della bioprotezione, quindi usando dei non Saccharomyces nella prima fase e successivamente, dopo 48 ore, un inoculo con dei Saccharomyces cerevisiae selezionati. La temperatura di ingresso è piuttosto bassa, siamo intorno ai 16 gradi, e poi andiamo avanti con la fermentazione per circa 1 grado Celsius al giorno fino ad arrivare ai 30 gradi. Facciamo rimontaggi e, se possibile, 1 o 2 delle stage durante tutto il periodo di fermentazione.
This particular vineyard is vinified after the sorting. The grape is entering into the tank at quite a low temperature, 15-16 Celsius, and is doing a fermentation with no added sulfites, using a specific technique of bioprotection of the grape, and is doing a very, let's say, slow fermentation with one temperature of a degree every single day, with also the pumping over and a couple of delestage during the period.
Sì, considera Monica che siamo sui 20 grammi litro di zuccheri residui in questo momento e faremo una macerazione post-fermentativa lunga perché questo Sangiovese è bellissimo, quindi se lo merita. I tannini sono molto piacevoli, setosi già in questo momento. Le gradazioni alcoliche sono mediamente alte quest'anno, quindi qui siamo intorno ai 14 gradi e mezzo, 14 gradi e 7 complessivi, quindi allungheremo un po' le macerazioni post fermentative fino ad arrivare più o meno ai 20-25 giorni complessivi di fermentazione più macerazione.
Quindi this will end about in some days the alcoholic fermentation, then considering the quality of the grape and considering that we have in this vintage alcohol in the range of between 14.5-15, we will do also another probably 10 days of post-fermentative maceration that is help to really soften the tannins and extract from the tannins and the skills also the aromatic components and good tannins from the wine. And then after this will be, of course, the racking and is going into the barrel aging process.
So if 25 days is on the long side for post fermentation maceration, what would be an average time for you?
So what is?
If 25 days is long, if you're leaving it for a longer extended maceration, what would be an average year?
But generally, in certain vineyards, the post fermentation maturation can be also 2-3 days. In this case, we probably arrive to 10-12 days. If, of course, because of course in the post maceration phase for this particular grape, you still have, let's say, good components to extract from the skin and the seeds. If a vintage example like, I don't know, 14, you probably avoid this because it's a vintage where you still have some green or a little bit of bitter tannins, and in this case the post-maceration, a very long post-maceration can be a damage to the wine more than a benefit.
So obviously the better the vintage, the more risk you can take by prolonging the process and making it longer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We had a question about Gabriele, perché non parli in inglese? But Gabriele is speaking, Enrico is translating perfectly, word for word, everything that Gabriele is saying.
Beh, quando non ci sarà Enrico qui accanto a me parlerò inglese. No, scherzo.
Poor Enrico. Everybody makes fun of him. Enrico, how long have you been general manager at Castello Banfi? How many years?
20.
20.
20 years.
And we have a question.
I'm getting old.
No, you're getting young. Wine keeps you young.
We have another wine. We have another one to show you.
Yes, and would you also tell us, so does the 2020 vintage remind you of any other previous vintages that you've particularly enjoyed, or
I think that, in my opinion, 2020 is, for certain characteristics, similar to 2010. Similar to 2010, but probably with, it's in my opinion, a combination between 2010 and 2016. Because in 2020 we
Not
have
bad,
an acidity profile that a little bit better than we still have to see the last couple of weeks of the harvesting. But in terms of balance between structure and elegance, probably 2020 will be a very, very interesting vintage. I will be very curious to see after the malolactic fermentation, because it's a very important point of evaluation, the wines once they finish the malolactic fermentation, in terms of having a better perspective, but I put this into the equation between 16 and 10 for what concerns Brunello.
So some of the best vintages of Brunello are obviously, well, we haven't tasted the 16 yet because it's not on the market, but it's highly anticipated. And elsewhere in nearby regions, 16 has been incredible across the board. So we have good reason to hope for beautiful results. The 2015 Brunello is on the market now. Brunello di Montalcino, by appellation rules, ages. It's released 5 years after the harvest. So it's a wine that spends a lot of time in the cellar to age even before it hits the market. And that's an incredibly important thing, because of the the expense in keeping wine for so long. But the wine already comes to the market with a beautifully evolved profile, a lot of complexity. It shows a very important side of Sangiovese in terms of its longevity. So, and then there's a Riserva category as well that even sees one more year before release. Gabriele and Enrico, we have a question about indigenous yeasts, indigenous ambient fermentations.
Se dice se la fermentazione seguita da ingredienti indigeni o selezionati.
Ma noi iniziamo in questa cantina, iniziamo a ricevere uve molto presto, dai primi bianchi, quindi Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Grigio, e successivamente passiamo alle uve rosse. Quindi per quanto riguarda il Sangiovese siamo già in una fase secondaria, per cui la zona, l'ambiente è già stato colonizzato da lieviti, per cui anche fare vinificazioni con, diciamo, spontanee sarebbe difficile. Per cui qui da noi non dico impossibile, ma sarebbe molto difficile. Per cui dovremmo magari uscire e stare fuori dalla cantina, e comunque sarebbe difficile.
We use generally consider that we have different fermentation. Generally, our idea is to use more selected yeast, not indigenous. To use indigenous yeast, it's independently from the fact of what you can prefer in terms of quality of the grape, but it would be important to have one single variety in a very separated ambience. Because otherwise, if you vinify, an example, a white varieties where you use selected yeast, and the second variety you want to use indigenous, in any case, the environment is already contaminated by the selected yeast. So will be not easy to separate these two concepts, independently then from the fact of what is from an enological and philosophy standpoint, if it is better the selected yeast or the indigenous yeast. In my opinion, it depends by the yeast. There are some indigenous yeast that are very good, some selected yeast that are as well as very good for certain objects.
So Enrico, the wines that we're seeing you hold up now, those wines won't be released until 2025. So we're looking at 5 more years. And can you tell us a little bit about the aging process of what they do between now and their release time in 5 years? What kind of oak do you age them in? And what is the process for the refinement of the wine?
The aging process, it's generally we use according to the vineyards. The aging process may also be a little bit different because we have in our aging facility, we use a barrique of 350 liters. We have introduced since this year also barrel starting from a barrel of 40 hectoliters, 40 hectoliters with the wood coming from the north of Europe, predominantly Austrian wood, as well as a barrel of 60 and 90 hectoliters, predominantly French oak. The trend is in this vintage to also starting from the fact that we vinify the horizon, so we define wood. The trend is in the last vintages to reduce a lot the use of barrique and to move more in terms of barrel of different dimensions. This is also due to the evolution of the grape, because if you look at the last vintages of the last 10 years, the alcohol level is generally increasing, and this is also one effect of the climate. And of course, the more the alcohol is high, you have also to manage a wood of different characteristics, because the alcohol is a kind of facilitate the extraction of tannins from the barrels. So in order to preserve also the elegance and the fruitiness, probably we are moving more versus less barrique and more barrel aging for what concerns Sangiovese.
And this is a trend that we're seeing, especially where Sangiovese is concerned, because Sangiovese likes to have kind of less contact with oxygen, and to have the bigger barrels that the bigger casks that Enrico described. There's a quick question, and then we'll have to wrap up. But whether or not you would consider experimenting with amphora or clay vessels?
So far, we have many experiments, but never say never. So, for what concerns the amphora, I just did a trip before COVID in Georgia, and honestly, I'm fascinated. I'm curious more on the white varieties for amphora than the red ones.
Right,
but
the Quervi.
That's my idea.
Listen, Enrico, I have to thank you so much for this wonderful tour, and to Gabriele as well, why we see him. Eccolo, ciao, bye, Gabriele.
Ciao,
Enrico, thank you so much, both of you, for this tour through the vineyards, through the cantina, and especially the drive through the vineyard. That was absolutely memorable. A big hug and
Monica.
kiss to you all.
Thanks to all. Bye-bye.
Grazie. Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao.